We went back to the scene with our team, and we had a little bison. We brought some materials. This is very strange. It was the one day of our bison. I got a phone call from the subdivisional inspector, the chief inspector in charge of Chimsachoy Police Station, who I knew very well. He said, "I've got this case here. It might be similar to the kind of case you're looking for." I said, "Just show me." I said, "I'm a stupid guilo. I don't know Ladder Street. Where's this Kane Road? Please, can you help me?" Yeah. He got so excited. I said, "Where?" I said, there. You stupid guilo. You don't know anything. And he wrote all this down as we got him.
Sean Houghton, Dangerous Person 2.0, English channel. Welcome back to Dangerous Person 2.0. I'm again back with the Chief Inspector, Norman McKillop. And if you like what we're about to tell you, don't forget to subscribe, share, comment, thumbs up. Now today we're going to talk about a case that is actually kind of long. I believe this occurred in 1980s. It was two police officers, Police Sergeant Ma and Sui Chan, who were killed in the line of duty. So let's just start there and see where that takes us. Now, this occurred in close to the cathedral. Let's start with Sergeant Ma. He was. There had been a rash of robberies.
Yes, there'd been a series of robberies over Christmas and prior to Christmas. The MO was a single perpetrator, male, would accost females round about the cathedral and round about the Catholic cathedral and mid-levels, that area, rob them and quite often indecently assault them.
Okay, is this around Robinson Road?
Robinson Road, around that area.
Okay.
Botanical Gardens, that kind of area.
Sure. Nice area.
And there'd been a series round about the Central Police Station area. And Che Chan was the staff sergeant and Sergeant Ma was the sergeant, and they were tasked with a team to try and track down this robber. He was pretty prolific. Well, it seems that they did track him down at least, and both of them lost their lives as a result.
When that incident occurred, from what I've read, they were supposed to be on patrol together, but actually one was way ahead of the other.
Yes.
Is that a type of tactics the police use, to have one police officer?
No, it's difficult to say what kind of tactics they were using on that day. But it appears that Sergeant Ma came across a suspect who appeared to be similar to the suspect as per the descriptions of the victims of the robberies. And it appears that he tried to stop him.
So he gave chase?
No, he didn't give chase, approached them.
Approached them?
We don't know what exactly was said, but approached them, probably with a view to stopping and asking for his ID card. And of course, both Sergeant Ma and Che Chan, they were both armed. It appears that he approached the suspect. The suspect was armed with a knife.
So this is Sergeant Ma approaching, and Sergeant Ma is alone at this moment.
At the time.
Yeah. Okay.
So it seems like the suspect managed to stab Sergeant Ma and take his revolver. Right.
Okay. Where did he stab Sergeant Ma?
In the stomach.
Okay.
I believe several times.
Oh.
So he was probably dead pretty soon after the stabbings. There was a gunshot, and Sergeant Che Chan heard the gunshot and came running. And of course, by this time, the suspect had Sergeant Ma's gun. And unfortunately, he shot Che Chan in the head, so he died.
Yeah.
Not immediately, but he died.
Yeah, that's I've heard about they brought him to the hospital, and the bullet was still tumbling
Yeah,
in his brain.
I don't think that's the case.
You don't think that's the case?
No.
You said it was moving, it was going around? No.
No,
Okay.
of course
Okay.
not. Anyway, the suspect took off. There was a number of gunshots. One of a young student from Yinghua College was grazed in the arm.
Okay.
There was a gunshot fired through the window of Nethersill Hospital. He took off down through mid-levels, down through Ladder Street. Kane Road, he accosted a bus driver
Yes.
by gun.
Yeah.
He was chased by a policeman. Luckily, the policeman wasn't shot, but anyway, to keep it short, he escaped.
Okay.
Right.
They said he had a distinguished feature in the hair, that even though he had white hair, but he was a young person.
No, he didn't have white
He didn't
hair.
have white
No.
hair. So I guess the Chinese press was off again.
No,
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
he neither had white hair. No, I've read that some people call him long hair, but no, it's just normal hair.
Oh, okay. All right.
So anyway, that was January the 16th, 1984. So we were tasked with the case. Of course, immediately the whole area was covered and police officers and searches were being conducted, but he was long gone. So we were left with the scene of crime and looking for witnesses, and all that was available to at the scene of crime was a tiny knife sheath made from some kind of leather. Looks like homemade, with some blood stain in it.
Did he escape with one of the police officers' guns?
Yes,
He did.
Sergeant Ma's gun.
Okay. So this case goes cold for a little bit.
It was cold,
Okay.
very, very cold.
So what happened next?
What happened? The only clue that we had at the scene was that it's likely that the person who killed Sergeant, the two police officers, was the robber, the mid-levels robber. So we took over all the mid-level cases, the robbery cases, and we re-investigated them again, as if the witnesses to these, or the victims, were actually witnesses to a murder, which in effect they were. So any descriptions which they gave of the robber, we would re-interview them, squeeze them to try and get the maximum amount of information we had to get, even to the point of walking them around the crime scene, their crime scene. Because each robbery, petty robbery you might call it, became to us potential witnesses to a homicide, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
So
Two policemen.
we re-investigated all these cases, which gave us a very detailed MO, even down to the word said. And he would say certain words, and even a few English words, because a lot of these victims were Filipinos.
Okay.
Right?
Interesting.
So even a few English words. So we would put together an MO, including words said, his description. So we also had the police artist interview all of these victims. There was about 15, I think. Police artists would draw a sketch, and so we had a composite sketch, which, as it turned out, a year later was actually amazing, almost like a photograph of the killer. So that was our focus in the initial months of the investigation.
So you have a sketch of him now.
Yes.
But you just said a year later. So what happens between the time when the
Okay.
two officers have died in their line of duty and a
Okay.
year later?
So-
What happens there?
So we plodded on with our investigation. A lot of our time was spent on the sheath, the little leather sheath. It was made of a peculiar material, a kind of foam type material inside.
Okay.
So we found little factories all over Hong Kong, up the New Terrace, who were making these little foam things, and see if we could get some clue from that. It was very pedantic work, took really a lot of leg work, but we didn't get much out of it. Another thing we looked at very closely was, okay, this guy's going to lay low for a while, because it seems to me that he makes a living from these kinds of robberies. So that's his job. Right? It's not just going out on a spur of the moment. Let's do a little robbery here and makes a couple of $100. And no, that's his job. He was so prolific.
That's his living.
That's his living.
Okay.
So we thought he's going to keep quiet again, but when he comes back again, we need to be ready. So we put all kinds of, we looked at the modus operandi. We have a department within the police which deals with MO, which every day collates different crimes that are being committed all around the territory, and looks for specific MOs and collates them. So we work very closely with that office to try and get a hint that this guy's resurfaced again. Well, he did resurface again. He resurfaced again about 6 months later in Happy Valley.
In Happy Valley?
In the cemetery in Happy Valley.
Really?
Did a few robberies there.
Okay.
So I thought, he's back in business, because we had a very good sketch thing. So we then started investigating these robberies, right?
So the victims of the Happy Valley robberies, they could reaffirm the sketch?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so he was back in business. Until November that same year, there was a horrific murder of a young lady in the Great Eagle Centre down in Wan Chai. She had in a lift with the robber, and the robber had drawn a knife, wanted to rob a group of them. And this young lady screamed, and the robber just put the knife through her heart, killed her. And there was a number of witnesses to that case, and the robber escaped.
I see.
And we took over that case
Okay.
as our case, because we believe, because of the description and the MO, this is our man. He's back in business.
So you were already thinking this is the man who killed our colleagues?
Yeah.
Okay.
As well as the Happy Valley case, he's preceding the Great Eagle. We thought
Okay.
he's back in business, and sure enough, he was back in business, and very sadly resulted in another murder, a third murder. We sent memos out to all the districts, all the regions, with very detailed instructions that if there's any case of this nature, with this particular MO with about 10 points, but it doesn't have to be all 10, right? If it's these points, you need to inform us immediately, and we will investigate the case. And it transpired that on the 16th of January, the anniversary of the murders of the two police officers, we hadn't had any major breakthrough, but we were making some progress in that we knew this man was still active, was active again. So we went back to the scene of crime, which is 1 year after the killings,
Yeah.
and we had a baisan. We had a prayer meeting at the scene of the deaths.
Okay, the scene of the officers' deaths.
Officers' deaths.
Okay.
We went back to the scene
Okay.
with our team,
Yeah.
and we had a little baisan. We brought some materials to. It's a very
Incest sticks.
a very important thing for the team.
Okay.
Of course, I'm not. I don't. But for the team, it's very important. So we went back, and within a day, we had the first breakthrough. It's very strange. It was the one day of our baisan. I got a phone call from the sub-divisional inspector, the chief inspector in charge of Chimsachoy Police Station, who I knew very well. He said, "I've got this case here. It might be similar to the kind of case you're looking for." He said, "It happened a few days ago, but no one reported it." He said, "The CID officer in charge of the CID should have called you. Did he call you?" I said, "No." So I said, "Look, I'll come over right away." So I went over to Chimsachoy Police Station, and he said, "Look, I've got this case. The guy's already been arrested. He's on remand in prison, waiting for trial." I said, "Well, why the hell didn't anyone tell me?" So I went through the case. What happened is there'd been a few robberies in Kowloon, similar type robbery. The girl, the victim of the robbery, had actually seen the perpetrator on the street and shouted at a security officer and said, "This guy robbed me." The security officer arrested him, not the policeman. The security officer arrested him. The police were called and they grabbed him. So he was taken to Chimsachoy Police Station in charge of robbery. We weren't informed. We should have been informed because there was very strict instructions.
Yeah.
It slipped through the net, but fortunately it was caught by the chief inspector in charge of the police station, who wasn't CID. right, who saw it and said, I
So
wonder.
this guy recognized the
Yeah,
modus
yeah.
operandi
Yeah,
that you were looking for.
Yeah, and he called me directly. He said, Norrie, was this case brought to your attention? I said, no. So I said, I'll come over right away. So I went over with Ipal Folk again, the intrepid Ipal Folk. I said, and the CID officer said, there's no way this is your guy, blah, 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 blah. I said, I'll take it from here. So I ascertained that he was in the police station, in the prison. So I went to see the officer in charge of the prison where he was on remand, and found out that he was due up in court on a certain date. So I asked permission from the prisons department if I could do we interviewed Lam first, of course, myself and Ipal Folk. And as soon as I set eyes on him, I knew it was him. In my heart, this is the guy. Immediately. Of course, he denied anything and said, no, it's nothing to do with me. He said, so I said, I wanted him to take part in an identification parade. He said, no, he refused. Okay, so that left us with a quandary. He's already in custody, in prison custody. Not yet gone on trial, so he's refused an identification parade. So the next step for me is I could do what they call a street identification, which is an unusual procedure. But if someone refuses to do identification, if I can have him in a crowd of people, which is not unfair to him,
Yes.
and I can ask the victim, without him knowing, can you identify anyone in this crowd? And they do, then that's not unfair.
Okay.
It's not unfair at all.
So, but a street identification that's a controlled environment, or you put them back on the street?
No, we couldn't do a street identification, so I asked the prisons department if we could get a crowd of prisoners in the exercise yard, and if they would mind if I had a witness without him knowing, but they didn't like that idea. So I thought, what am I going to do now? So I knew he was coming up to court in South Carolina. So I went to see the magistrate in South Carolina, Hugh Boer, who was the chief magistrate, who I didn't know. And I said, look, I want to do an identification in your courtroom. He said, what? I said, that's a bit unusual. I said, I explained the circumstances. He said, that's fine with me, but you need to choreograph it very, very carefully. What happens if he shouts something out and said he objects, he thinks he finds out what's going on? I says, well, if he spots any of his victims and says they're trying to ID me, that's good for us.
Yeah.
So anyway, we put together a plan, and we decided that we'd start with the victims of the robberies around Central at that time. So we got some of the best, smartest victims, and we briefed them that we're going to take them to the court, and we're going to have a detective beside them. Right? Nothing's to be said. You're not to point to anyone. You're not to shout to anyone. You just whisper to the detective. If you identify someone, you say, yes, the man identify is, where is he and what's he wearing, right? Okay, and the detective will write that down and keep it very quiet. So the first day we tried that, and a number of prisoners were brought in, and Lam Ho Yi was brought in, and we didn't say to look in the dock or look here, or look there, look anywhere you want. And we got, I think on the first day, 3 or 4 identifications.
Out of how many?
We didn't all do it all in one day because there's going to be more than one appearance in court.
Okay.
So we got 3 or 4. Wow. So that's great. We've got 3 or 4 robbery and indecent assault victims with good statements. Right. So this occurred again on another remand day, and we got some more. On the second remand day, he shouted from the witness box, he said, they're trying to identify me, which I thought was great. How did you know we're trying to identify him? He must have recognized his victims.
Yeah.
So anyway, from that we got another 3 or 4. So we then had a bank of about 10 solid identifications of him being the robber, and by inference, him building up evidence of him being the killer. So we went to interview him again, and he got very heated, right? And he wasn't having any of it. So we searched his house. So I said, right, I'm going to admit a bit of coercion here, but I think it's fair enough. We went back to search his house again, and we turned it upside down, because don't forget there was the possibility of
Stolen
contact evidence.
properties too.
Stolen property and contact evidence. So we thoroughly searched it upside down. We interrogated the wife. And they had the wife and the young daughter in the house. I think it was in Thurmont, yes. It was in a housing estate, but it was very nice. It was well maintained. The children were impeccable, lovely children. The wife was a very nice lady. So in my mind, using a bit of amateur psychology, I thought this guy actually loves his wife and children. And I asked the wife, where does he work? She says she doesn't know, but he goes out every day and he comes back and he provides for the family. I don't know what job he does. He's a robber.
Yeah.
But on the other side of the coin, he clearly looks after his family. His wife is nice. The children are impeccable. The house is nice. You know, you can see that he cares for his family. It's just a twisted brain. But so I thought, we'll really turn this place upside down, because I know the wife's going to go back and tell him. So then we knew he had a visit from his wife, so we went to visit him again. And he completely changed. He went berserk. He said, I know you're looking for the mid-level murders of Chechan and Sergeant Ma. He said, I'm not going to tell you anything, but I won't allow you to write anything down. I said, but I'll tell you what happened. So, okay, we can't write anything down, right? So I said, we're still going to caution you, right? So I said to Peter Yip, I said, caution him. So he cautioned them. So he started to tell us the story of how he'd come across Ma. Ma had come across him, asked for his ID card. So he'd stabbed Ma, taken his gun, and then Chechan had come on the scene, so he killed Chechan. And then he fired off a couple of rounds and he ran away. Then he ran along Kane Road, the bus incident, and then he jumped off the bus and he ran down Ladder Street. So this and that. And don't forget, he told us he wouldn't write anything down. So when he was talking about all this, I said to him in Chinese, I said, I'm not quite sure Ladder Street is where is it so I gave him I said, can you show me? Can you show me the road? So I gave him a pen.
So he wrote it down.
I said, just show me. I said, I'm a stupid guilo. I don't know Ladder Street. Where's this Kane Road? Please, can you help me? He said, yeah. I said, wow, Sergeant Ma was here, blah, blah, blah. And then he drew a plan of the Ladder Street, Kane Road, and then he ran down here. And then he got in a bus, and then the policeman chased the bus, so he pointed a gun at the policeman, and then blah, blah, blah. Then he went down to the Star Ferry, and he got on the Star Ferry. Then he crossed the harbour on the Star Ferry. I said, "What? Where was the gun?" He says, "Oh, Petlahoy." Threw it in the water.
Yeah.
Petlahoy.
Yeah.
So then he goes, and then he went home. Oh, I thought, great. So, so I've got him with his diagram. I've got his fingerprints all over the paper. So after we got the story, I said, "Are you still not going to write things down?" He says, "Nope." He says, "Okay. Thank you very much." So off he went. I said, "We got him."
Yeah.
So I said, "Take this, put it in an exhibit back very, very carefully." I said, "Get one of the prison officers to witness that he saw him write this down on the paper." So that became the crucial evidence during the trial.
Very good.
So he said, "I'm not going to write things down," but he did. Because his ego had run away with it.
Yeah.
He got so excited. He was swearing and shouting, and then, then this and that, and this and that, blah, blah, and he said, "Write it down." I said, where? I said, there. You stupid guilo, you don't know anything. And he wrote all this down as we got him.
Oh,
He got
very
it.
good.
So during the trial, we decided to go for the Great Eagle because we had an identification parade where the witnesses all picked them up. So a very solid identification evidence
In the
for
Great Eagle.
So Jim Chandler was the Crown Counsel. We worked together in many, many cases. A very, very good Crown Counsel. He passed away last year. But he decided, let's go for the Great Eagle first. So we went for the Great Eagle. And it was very solid identification witness, no forensics. And he was convicted. Legal department, after the Great Eagle case, it was a very good case. It was a very solid case, so it's very unlikely there would be any good appeal points for it. So it was a pretty solid conviction. He got the death sentence, commuted, of course. So legal department made a decision not to go ahead with the Che Chan case. I was furious because the Che Chan case was such there's the families of the victims and the police force per se itself.
Especially the police force, the morale of the police.
So I went up to see the DPP because I'd worked very close with legal departments. I had no worries about going to see the Director of Public Prosecutions myself. We were colleagues and friends. I said, look, this is not good. This is not good. I said, we've got all the evidence we need for the Che Chan case. We need to go ahead with it for the morale of the police force. We can't just let it lie on file.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't be appropriate. So he agreed with me and said, okay, we'll go ahead. So we went ahead with the trial. So during the trial, we got the good witnesses, victims of it. When I say good, I mean the ones who had given solid statements, identifications. So they all, this is a case which goes against what I was saying the other day. We keep it simple because this became quite crucial evidence for the murder. Because the case was that they were trying to track down the robber. And they did, and the robber killed him. So we used the robberies as evidence against them. So
use the robberies to get to the murder.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we didn't charge them with the robberies. It was pointless.
Just charge them with the murders.
Yes.
Okay.
Same principle.
Yeah.
But we used the evidence of the robberies to assist the evidence in the murders.
Yes.
So anyway, he was convicted. So
he's convicted on all three.
all of them.
All three murders.
All of them.
Yeah. But you said that the Great Eagle case, he was basically convicted on
Identification.
identification.
Evidence, yes.
What about the knife? Was that ever recovered?
No.
Wasn't.
No.
Okay. So pretty much solely identification.
The Great Eagle, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But more than one witness.
Sure.
More than one
Okay.
witness. I think there were about 5 witnesses.
5 witnesses.
Yeah.
Okay. And the defense attorney could not shake any of them. Okay. That's why you said it was so solid.
We were very solid. Yeah.
Okay.
And very simple, straightforward legal issues. Not appealable. No real basis for an appeal.
Okay.
So a very solid case. So legal department thought they'd save money, but this is not a save money situation.
Yeah. Is that why they didn't want to go after the police cases, because they wanted to save monly?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But you forced the issue.
I just had a chat with them.
Okay. All right. So you forced the issue.
Not really. I was in no position to force, but we had good relations.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're persistent.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. So, and of course, that's good for the police station to know that one of their own will get justice when they
Yes.
die in the line of duty.
Yeah. It was a very notorious case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, I think I will leave it at that for today. If you learned something new, please subscribe, like, comment, and share. And thank you once again, Norman.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay. Cheers.